Hello, Internet, and welcome to the Free-to-Play cast, brought to you by MMOBomb.com, your home for all things free-to-play related. I'm your host, magicman, as I am every week. This is episode 120, recorded December 9th, 2014. You'll be watching it on the 11th. And joining me, you know him. He's sexy, even with the glasses. I can't, because I wear glasses too, so of course it's sexy. Mr. Jason Winter, how are you, sir?
It's been a long time since I grew the porn stash.
I shed mine quickly as soon as that show was over. Gone!
Maybe I'll do one over Christmas break. Come back after, if we do a break in the podcast, come back with it and amaze you all.
Oh, boy. I bet the internet is just thrilled with eager anticipation about that one. All right, let's get over and start with the news. So on the site earlier this week, MMOBomb.com, we had a post about Black Desert Online, which we already knew was going to open beta sometime early in 2015. But then we received initial reports from both Dom Games and Pearl Abyss, the publisher and the developer, respectively, of Black Desert Online, that the MMORPG was coming west a little earlier than we all had anticipated. It was also going to launch in 2015. And I say was here, Jason. I say was. Because something happened after that article, and we got clarification today. We'll be updating the article on the website. What happened?
Well, late breaking news. Basically what happened is I looked at stuff on the internet and found that there was a clarification of the information, which says that the guy who gave the information that it would be in the North American beta would be in 2015, he was just wrong. It's really still, it was originally 2016 and it still is.
Nice. Nice.
It's easy to get confused in the years. Three of them are right. Three of the numbers are still the same. So
right. I think what probably happened here, or what could have happened here, is somebody used the phrase next year.
Yeah.
We're getting very close to the end of 2014 here, that I'm pretty sure somebody probably used the phrase next year, and everybody went, hey, 2015 is next year. And they went, no, well, yeah, I mean, technically, yeah, 2015 is...
It's like, when is next Friday? Is it the Friday 3 days from now, or is it the Friday a week from now?
Right, exactly. So I think there was a little lost in translation here a little bit. But let's talk about, we haven't really talked about it on this show yet, Black Desert Online. And I'm going to show you guys some footage here. Footage is a courtesy of our friend Steparu, who we go to, at least I go to, for a lot of translation and update information on basically any title that's in the East and not the West that's pretty hard to get information on. Steparu's usually really on it. So I'm going to show you some footage, courtesy of Steparu, while we talk about this. Are you excited about Black Desert Online at all? I mean, it looks pretty to me. I'll give my overview here, right? It looks pretty. I like the visuals. I like the flashy spell effects and everything. It's got kind of like that limited action set. I wouldn't compare it to a Guild Wars 2. I would compare it more to to something like a Vindictus or a C9, where it's got that type of actiony limited skill set. But I don't know if I'm as excited about this one as many people are.
Yeah, that's what the comments were saying on the article too. A lot of them were like, "Oh, it's just a prettier Vindictus," and on some level, I get that. And I don't know. Agreed. It looks great. It looks like it could be a lot of fun to play, to do the combat. But this is, a little something I was talking with someone about WildStar back when it was in beta. And I told them, okay, so yeah, we hear the combat is great, but what do you actually do with that? And it turned out, as you said, it's still just grind, kill 10 rats, so on and so forth forever. And it's like, I'd rather have a game that has boring-ass tab target, sit in one place, Final Fantasy 14 kind of combat.
Oh, you son of a... You couldn't resist, could you?
I would rather have that kind of combat in a world where you do cool, interesting things than some flashy, action combat, this and that special effects where all you do is the same thing over and over. So that's what I fear, that as flashy and as beautiful as it looks, is it just another Korean grind to max level? Then you get to do PvP in dungeons or whatever. That's the part that worries me.
I gotta say, some of the models are just downright impressive.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the larger monster models, like right now we're watching a little bit of Steparu practice and do PvP and items like that. But in some of the trailers that we've seen that have been released, it's really, really super impressive. Here, visually at least. Let me ask you this then. Now that we know this is going to be 2016, at least currently slated for 2016, who knows if it'll be delayed? I mean, Daum Games is publishing it in the East and decided to also publish it in the West. Now, whether that's because they couldn't find a publisher that fit their bill or not in the West, or they actually just wanted to expand themselves, you know, that's...
They were going to use Tryon, but then no.
Oh, man. You are 2 for 2 this morning. 2 for 2. I'm going to ask this, and I want to ask the viewers, too. Do we see Black Desert first, or do we see Blade and Soul first? In the West
Blade
here.
and Soul was actually launched in a few different territories, so...
Yeah, and technically Black Desert is open beta in Korea.
Yeah, so I would tend to think we would see Blade and Soul, at least a beta or some sort of playable thing, if not the full launch, probably sometime in 15. It just seems like it's a little more imminent. Although, I mean, we've seen some games, and Phantasy Star Online 2 is one I think of that has been out in the in the Eastern territories for a couple of years now, and they're like, someday we'll bring it to the West. Really, we will. Someday.
We were supposed to see that at the beginning of 2014.
I think it was supposed to see it in 2013.
Was it?
I don't know.
I remember when it first released. I think I was still at MMO Bomb, and I was really excited about PSO too, because I played Phantasy Star Online, the original, a lot on the Dreamcast actually, with the old dial-up connection. Woot! So I was really excited about PSO2, and I remember I think I was still with MMO Bomb when that first released, so that would have been like the end of 2012. And then as soon as it released, we got announcements that yes, we are going to bring it west, and we're going to bring it west very quickly. So yeah, I guess you must be right. That was early 2013 that we were supposed to actually see it, and then we didn't hear anything.
No.
And then just a few months ago, we did get confirmation. We're still working on coming to the West out of Sega.
Yeah, that was like the only thing. They didn't say anything else. It was like one tweet, 140 characters.
Damn thing. They were just like, yeah, it'll be there.
But I mean, from a strictly logical, this following that event standpoint, yeah, you would think Blade and Soul would be out first.
I'm actually worried about Blade and Soul, at least coming to the West. For as much hype has been about that all over that game, for as long as the hype's been over it, I think visually the game's really showing age very quickly.
Yeah, and again, it's, I don't know, again, I'm going to go with my whole Buy American standpoint again. It's just like with Black Desert, we see these flashy visuals and go, oh my god, that looks amazing. Then we get to play the game, and we're like, oh, I'm just grinding out mobs again. Who gives a whatever? So I think that kind of feeds into a lot of the Korean hype and then the disappointment when the game actually shows up.
I don't know, man. I think Black Desert has a much bigger profile on what you can actually do. Like you referenced Final Fantasy XIV, and everybody knows that's a game that I play quite a bit of. And the one thing that, if you're not into PvP, which it's terrible in that game anyway, but if you're not into PvP, then fine, go do the dungeons and the PvE stuff. If you don't want to do the dungeons and the raids, then go kill a primal. If you don't want to do that, then they've got housing, if you can afford it. If you don't want to do that, then they've got all the glamour stuff and the crafting stuff. Like, it's very diversified as far as the type of player that could play this. And I think Black Desert kind of falls into that mold. Everything we've seen has been a new, well, you can do this in the game. If you don't want to run a dungeon, okay, well, let's talk about castles and building, and let's talk about this, and let's talk about this. I like it visually. I love that style of combat, that Vindictus, that C9, that type of combat. When it's done well, I got slaughtered in Vindictus during Bomb Live yesterday just because I haven't played it in like a year or so and decided to just jump into a level 80 character. And I got it handed to me. And that's the type, I can dig combat like that, where you actually have to think and that stuff. As much as a fan as I am of tap target games, I gotta say, I'm a little excited about Black Desert Online. I'm a little leery of it too, a little wary of what it might look like when it finally comes west. But I'm excited. I'm a lot more excited for Black Desert than Blade and Soul. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and I did find another video on Black Desert that had a lot of different activities going on in them, but even then, I wonder a little bit, like, okay, there's one where someone was like carrying a sheep around.
Oh, yeah.
It's
There's
like,
like little mini games and stuff.
yeah, all the mini games and so on, and it's like those could be cool, but you know how MMO players are. If those don't give me the loot in the right time frame or whatever, then it's just something I'm going to do once, see what it's like, and then go back to grinding out mobs or dungeons or whatever. So I mean, you're right. There is quite a bit of stuff in Black Desert, but I hope it's not just there for like window dressing. I hope it's actually a part of the game that adds something to it that there is a reason to do.
Damn, it looks pretty. I'll give it that one.
Uh,
Open beta.
The character creator, you could spend like 5 hours in it.
Oh yeah, it reminded me a lot of the Ion character creator when that first came out, and you're like, well, damn, I'm gonna be here for 2 hours creating a character, adjusting everything, adjust kneecap size. Okay, sure, why not? Let's play with the kneecap slider. Whoop, whoop, whoop,
Does it have an ass and boob slider though?
I would imagine that it does.
Okay.
I would imagine that it does. So let us know in the comments below. Are you excited about Black Desert? Yes, we got to wait now till 2016, but beta will be early next year, 2015. Next year being actually 2015. So check it out. Check it out on the website. We've got all the Black Desert info there. Are you excited about it? Are you more excited about Blade and Soul? Which one will we see first here in the West? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Let's slide over and talk.
Do we have to?
Hey, I ranted last week. Ranted last week. Benefit, though, most people agreed with me. So at least I have that going for me.
Well, I picked an easy target.
I kind of did. It was just like I typed so much about that I just had to get it out of me at that point. So you wrote a couple of pieces, one a few days ago and then one yesterday. I want to hit both of them if we can, real quick.
What did I write? I totally
forgot. The first one that I got to talk about is you wrote a piece on toxicity, or which is a System of a Down song. That was my favorite comment that somebody put on the website. Toxic communities, we'll say, in MOBAs, and maybe we give MOBAs too much of a hard time for the whole toxic atmosphere because it's a bigger problem across not only gaming but the internet in general. Mm-hmm. And it really wasn't received the way I thought it would be.
I think that's the basic point of me saying that, yeah, it's more than just in MOBAs. Might have been okay.
Yes.
And yeah, then maybe I just started going off because I had to fill up more words or whatever, and went off my personal opinions and whatever. So the article got away from me a little bit. I'll grant you that. That said, I don't know. If your entire goal to get online in a game is to be an ass to your teammates, then I don't really want to play with you. And chances are your teammates don't either. So
there was a lot of surprising feedback on this one, and like I said, I agreed with the whole. Yeah, the internet can be a kind of a, for lack of a better word, a dickish place, right? Especially with anonymity, and that just comes with the territory. And we're seeing sites like YouTube try to squelch that anonymity a little bit by making, use proper names and things like that. But in MMO spaces, that's never going to happen.
No.
You're never going to be required to create a character named Mike Byrne and Jason Winter. That's just not going to happen.
Unless Blizzard goes back to real ID and as requirement.
Right.
That worked out well.
But some people kind of thought, well, they didn't even consider MOBAs to be that toxic because they kind of put it in a different ballpark. They put it in it's a competitive game ballpark.
It's funny that we have the one article for a while ago where Riot says there's only 5% of players are toxic, and everyone says, oh no, it's a hell of a lot more than that. And now you have this. Right? So, oh no, MOBAs aren't toxic at all. Come on, guys, pick a narrative. Pick one in your comments and go with it.
I thought it was interesting, though, that many people spoke out and didn't think that the piece was on point. I thought it was. And I think it's just a naturally occurring thing of the internet. It has nothing to do with a specific game in particular. For instance, the Dota 2 footage you're watching, the community may not be toxic at all. Who knows? But yeah, I tend to believe that the MOBAs, they deserve the reputation they have.
Yeah, and like
they've earned it.
And like I tried to point out, it's because that's all there is in the MOBAs. It's just the, basically 5-on-5 or 3-on-3 or whatever the team size is. It's that competitive thing. That's all there is. You can avoid that in an MMO, by doing, going off and doing crafting or hanging out with your guild or whatever, and, sticking with friends and so on. So that's why MOBAs probably get it a little more than a lot of other games, because that's all you can do in those games.
And the competitive nature.
Right, and the competitive, because every time you fail, every time your team loses in a MOBA, there's that one guy who thinks he's really like an MLG player, and you guys were all holding him back. So.
Well, if I'm playing, then that's probably
well,
true.
sure. I'm not saying I don't. I'm saying though that guy is not an MLG player. That's like going to the schoolyard or whatever, going to the whatever the basketball court, at the local rec center, and having some guy get pissed at you because he thinks he should be in the NBA.
So here, Gamer for Life says, this is basically why I play with friends and only with friends.
Yeah.
I don't get mad if the party wipes or if we lose a match. I shrug it off and try again. But there are people that just lose it, and it annoys me to the point of quitting. I can't get my friends in on the game. Usually, though, in games like Lord of the Rings Online, Warcraft, TERA, so on, I've usually played a tank or a supporting character, and I always mention that I'm new to the game. That's a biggie right there.
Yeah, that is something too.
That's a biggie.
If you're like pugging a dungeon for the first time, bring it up.
I thought it was ironic, though, that you wrote an article on toxic community, and then the comments just went apeshit. I thought that was pretty funny. Darren says, this is simply because on the internet you're anonymous and there's no consequences for insulting others. Those who insult and act nasty obviously have some sort of emotional problems or something like this, and they get easily frustrated by petty matters and explode on the internet. If there are others like them, the chain reaction is hilarious.
I don't even know necessarily that people who make insults are nasty people to begin with, because I've had some people who I know in real life who are decent people, and sometimes they'll just go off. And it's just like, dude, I know you. Not on me. They'll go off on somebody else. I'm like, dude, I know you're not like that. Stop it.
Well, you also have tools and I think the reason you probably see this in MOBAs more than other MMO RPGs and things like that vein is you have tools in an MMORPG that make sense to use, such as block and blacklist and things like that.
Sure.
In MOBAs, that's a little harder to do. Yeah, the features are there, but you do want to maintain some type of communication, especially in the middle of a match. Now, it's easy to say, okay, Jason was an ass, let's blacklist him after the match, but you still want that communication, so you're a little bit limited there. But most of the offending chat in MMORPGs, you can usually just filter out and not have to worry about it.
All right. What the hell else did I write? I didn't even remember anymore.
The other one that I wanted to touch on was your awful ideas, which I didn't think this one was an awful idea.
Well, it's not awful for you and me. It's, however, probably awful for the developers, for the
Probably.
Awful ideas is more like the general concept of it is something that I think is interesting but will never happen. Well, why it's never going to happen, because it's a bad idea or because someone's never going to do it, I don't care, but it's just never going to happen. Sort of.
So the idea behind your latest piece was to limit the amount spent in a game through some sort of monthly cap in place by the developer. And you were very specific that it's the developer, you don't want government intervention, which I totally freaking agree with.
Yeah.
The developer putting them in place. And Mojang's kind of talking about doing this type of thing on their upcoming titles. So I don't think it's that awful an idea. It would definitely save us from those stories of some 14-year-old spending $22,000 on mom's credit card and not getting a refund from Apple.
Yeah. The basic idea is, like I said, the developer puts in a limit as to how much you can spend on a free-to-play game, whether it's $100, $200, whatever. Which, let's face it, $200 per month. $200 per month, that's going to get you everything. Even if you weren't like taking the sub in SWTOR, we'll say. Everybody hates how SWTOR's free-to-play is, whatever. You're not going to spend more than $200 on SWTOR. And again, you should buy the sub if you're going to do that. But the only exception would be if you just bought lockbox after lockbox, or you're just an idiot like that. But you're just not going to spend that much money in a free-to-play game unless you're just absolutely addicted, obsessed, whatever. And that way, you could still, you'd still be making or the company could still theoretically make a pretty good amount of money per person. But you're not going to have, like you said, the person who just uses up all his life savings, spends either a ton of money on the game in a month because, you get access to mom's credit card, or even over the course of the year, you're talking a couple $1,000s, which is a decent amount of money, but, not going to put you in the poorhouse probably if you're, have a job or whatever. So It'd be nice if there was something like that, if nothing else, as a measure of goodwill, as a sign to show that, hey, we're not trying to exploit you. We're not just trying to squeeze every single penny out of you and screw you. Who cares if you're addicted to this and can't make your own good life decisions or whatever. This would maybe allow them, even if they lose some money from the whales and whatever, maybe allow them to at least have a nicer reputation in the community.
Here's my thing, though. Is it really the developer's responsibility to do this one?
Again, I keep looking back to casinos, and casinos all have, in the somewhere in the lobby or whatever, they'll say, at least they'll have like the gambling helpline. Do you need help? Here, do this. Call this number.
So we should put that on MMO.
This is basically
you have a
some
free
kind
to play
of helpline.
problem.
They recognize that some people have gambling issues, and they at least make some attempt to try and even if, like I said, even if just out of a blind token of goodwill, they at least make some effort to recognize this exists and do something about it. And this would sort of be in that same vein.
I don't think it's an awful idea. I actually don't know if I'd like to see it implemented, though, even if it was from the developer. Because, I mean, if I can afford to spend the money, then why would you block me from being able to give you the money simply because 1 out of 10,000 people is going to accidentally do something on their card or accidentally give their son, who's 11 and doesn't understand the concept of this credit card and limits and everything, access to it? I don't know. I don't like the idea of punishing 9,999 people to protect the one.
Yeah, and that's the thing I brought up is like, even if you're someone who thinks you'll never spend $200 a month or whatever in the game, the notion that it's still not available and not something you can do if you really wanted to. So I don't know. I mean, again, like I said, I would be that person. I would never spend probably $200 a month in a game, but
what's the most you've ever spent on a free-to-play game?
Not much.
I mean, you're a big Lotra guy. I know you've given them some cash here and there.
No, because I have a lifetime sub, so they get
okay.
points every month.
So you probably wouldn't with Star Trek Online because you have lifetime there too.
Yeah, that's yeah. See, there is that little bit, but I mean, most games that are like that, I don't play them that much. I mean, the closest
you were heavily in the Guild Wars, and you still dabble in it. You ever use the
yeah, I
gem
do.
market
I've bought $20 in gems from them over 2 years plus. Yeah, I know it's terrible.
They are loving you right now.
Hey,
you are just paying the bills.
For my regular game, whatever. But yeah, I mean,
I don't know what the
I'd
one
say I
I've
just
spent
can't imagine
most in.
because I have a friend who talks about he was in SWTOR, and I think I might have mentioned this to you. He's like, one day he's just sitting on the Republic fleet, and they have this thing where like the lockboxes, do some like air delivery drop thing, and he's standing next to some guy who's just got one after another coming down. And he just messages the guy. He's like, dude, what are you going for? He's like, I'm going for the thing, the rare mount or whatever, or pet. And my friend's like, you could buy that on the cartel market for whatever, 500,000 credits, or not the cartel market, on the regular exchange. And this guy's like, yeah, but I'm sure to get it in the next one.
Look, red has come up 15 times in a row on the roulette wheel. Black is due. It's due to come up. I think the most I've spent, I don't know. I've probably given TERA over the course of a year and a half, 2 years, maybe, I don't know, maybe 100, 120, something like that. I've bought in a couple mounts and some stuff from them. Rift is probably the big one. Not anymore. But Rift, I don't even want to look at how much I've probably given Rift, because I can tell you 100% when it went free to play, my expenditure went way up. It was no longer just $15 a month.
So I could see occasionally having cases where they might, maybe they waive the limit. If this happened, like when there's an expansion, when it first goes free to play, so maybe you want to buy more. I could kind of get that, but.
Speaking of TERA, I took part in a TERA Fate of Arun, the new expansion pack coming up here in just a few days. Took a little tour with the team over at Enmas. We took a look at some of the zones, some of the new abilities, and then even ran Baptismal Rise, which is the last 5-person dungeon in the game in the expansion right now. I know you're not huge on TERA. You're not huge. I'll tell you what, though. It was myself and a few other of our press cohorts from various sites. We were in a group of 6 people, and they made it a raid group and everything so we could run this dungeon made for 5 people. We didn't get any loot because we were running it with 6 people, and we didn't need it because we were in
What do you need loot for? Come on,
we were in
keep this character
ridiculously
anyway.
over-geared characters, and some of them had GM abilities anyway. They're teleporting us all over the place. I gotta say a few things though. After the whole tour was over, not one of us was like, okay, thanks so much. Every single one of us wanted to load TERA up and play it a little more. So the expansions definitely got that feel going for it. If you kind of left TERA for a while, maybe you got sick of the grind to do all the enhancements and tier 14 and 15 and 16 and all that stuff, and you want something new, this first expansion is probably worth a comeback for you to at least play through the new 5 levels, the new zones, the new dungeons, the new PvE/PvP Coliseum. So there's definitely a lot there that is going to make you want to play if you enjoyed playing it previously. Is it worth jumping in now to level up from level 1? I don't know. Because you're going to hit that same period that all of us hit around mid-30, where it just
18 for me.
where it just feels like, oh, come on, I just want to get this over with and get to max level. But if you're sitting at max level with nothing to do and you haven't checked it out in a while, I think you're going to like Fate of Arun on that front. Visually, it's as impressive as ever. TERA is still one of the best looking MMORPGs on the free-to-play market, in my opinion. And the combat, it's hard to argue with. It is a fun combat style to get into once you get the hang of it and dodging and everything. Some of the BAMs, the big-ass monsters, were ridiculously impressive looking, with a few new mechanics. We had fun in the dungeon, and even being god geared for it with 6 people instead of 5, we still had people in our party wipe to the last boss, die to the last boss. So there are mechanics that you're going to have to avoid, and there's some fun little... The first boss causes you to trip, so it's like it's like a bad acid trip. So yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff in there. I have a concern though.
Okay.
I don't know if there's enough
To justify a full expansion.
I can certainly see why they're calling it an expansion.
Is it costing? Does it have a price, or is it
No.
Okay.
It's free to everybody there. But there's new zones, 5 new levels, 4 new dungeons, the new PvE/PvP Coliseum. So there's definitely a meaty chunk of content going there. There's no new raid yet. That's going to come in the next update. Guild housing is available in the Korean version of the Fate of Arun expansion, but it's not going to be available when Fate of Arun launches here. Again, that's going to come in a future update. Just content-wise, though, I'm a little concerned that there's not enough there. They've done some great things. Check this out, Jason. You'll love this. They put in a daily play guide. Really, really cool menu, especially if you have not played for a long time. You have no idea where the hell you are in anything. It's one simple screen. It's got a daily login reward that every successive day you log in, you get a better reward. Great, fine. We've seen those before. It's got a weekly badges payout where it gives you a list of quests that are appropriate for your level, and the more you complete in a week, the more badges they're going to give you that can be used to buy things at the end of the week. Very cool thing, too. It's got a quest guide as to here's where you're at in the story. And so here's what's happened. It gives you like a little recap of the beginning of the story till then, and then going forward, it shows you where to go. And then it has the ability to queue for PvP and PvE content directly from the menu. So everything can be controlled from this one menu. Boot up, log in, and you instantly can pick up right wherever you're supposed to be or where you should be, but maybe you weren't for whatever reason. And you can queue and claim all rewards directly from the daily play guide. Very handy little menu. Loved it.
It's funny that I semi-seriously tweeted a few days ago that I'm just going to judge MMOs based on how their inventory system works. And it's like I've gotten to the point, and I'm not one of those guys who's like, oh, all MMOs are exactly the same, blah, blah. But they're Final Fantasy XIV and World of Warcraft and Lord of the Rings Online and SWTOR. They're all more or less kind of sort of the same. We acknowledge this. So it's like my choice is now almost between the theme of it. Yeah, okay, I like Lord of the Rings, I like Star Wars, and what are the conveniences in the game? It's like if one of those games has a better storage system than the other, I might pick that over the other. And something like this that has just some better UI, some sort of element to it, that makes me like it. That makes me more interested in it, almost than because every game is going to have okay, we're going to have dungeons and we got raids and we got
Right.
gear, we got all this. Okay, everybody has that. Those are all the same. But have actually something like this, and I've talked about this before, where because again, this happened to me when I got back into SWTOR after 2 years off. It's like I kind of forgot where I was and what everything was and where to get all. And they had, of course, new things. They had these, these menus that not menus, but these like tutorial frames that pop up, and I'm just like, God, all this stuff is so overwhelming. So to have something like this that you talk about, have this kind of one-stop, what to do kind of thing, I think would be really neat to have in a lot of games. For the reason you say, like if you've been gone for a while, and you come back, where the hell am I? What am I supposed to be doing? Something like that is really cool.
The cool part about it too, I mean, and I'm not touting this as anything new. We have other
No,
games
it's the best
that
feature ever. It's a great.
we have
every
other
game needs to do this.
other games that do these types of things, but usually we see them in multiple menus, right? You click a menu and it shows you here's appropriate quests, dungeons, and PvP stuff for you to be doing, and then you have to kick up the group finder and go and do your thing in there to get into those groups and run those things. I mean, it's just streamlined is the best way to describe it. It's all on one window. Claim your rewards. Clicky, clicky, clicky. Get my rewards. All right, let me go and do these 2 quests. By the way, let me also queue for this dungeon that you're telling me is level appropriate and part of my story right now. Let me close this window and I'll quest until the dungeon queue pops. Very cool feature. The PvP players in particular are kind of getting the shaft on the entire expansion. And I feel for the PvP guys and gals, though, because there hasn't really been too much new besides some arena and some mode changes, which were months ago now. And there's nothing in this expansion. The PvE/PvP Coliseum is really a PvE event. It takes 2 teams in and they race to kill off waves of monsters and BAMs. Each wave you can earn Coliseum points for your team and use those points to either buff your team or drop buffs off of the other team, debuff the other team. So it's PvP in the respect that you're dropping their buffs and giving yourself your own. Whoever makes it all the way through first wins. But that's really PvE content. It just has a smattering of you can piss around with the other team. And the payout is PvP gear that is more geared towards PvE players who probably don't have PvP gear and want to start getting into PvP. So if you're a PvP aficionado, this expansion really doesn't offer much for you. So that's one of my concerns. The other one is sheer content. Yeah, they streamlined the enhancement system. There's no longer 100 and bajillion tiers of enhancements. There's 1 through 5. Almost everything in the game now can be deconstructed into fodder to make those things. All those useless gems that had no bearing on your class can now be reconstructed into gems that might have a bearing and you would want to use on your class. So all the things that people have been doing forever at end game, grinding this stuff out, has been changed and made better and easier to use and easier to farm and things like that. Which means, what is there to do for those people that play TERA day in and day out? It's a great expansion for people like me and you that play it every once in a while.
Well, like you.
Well, okay, like me. If you play TERA every single day, that's your game. You're going to steamroll through 5 levels, no problem, 60 to 65, like that, day or two, couple of days max. You're going to run through 4 dungeons, get the feel for it, then you're going to be able to farm them, no big deal. They did say that the dungeon difficulty, particularly Baptismal Rise, the last one, is going to be extremely challenging when you're wearing the level-appropriate gear and for the first few times that you're farming gear. So plan on that one being a little difficult for a while, but eventually you'll outgear it. And then there's nothing. At that point, you just pick up where you left off, resume farming materials, grinding to get your enhancements and your gems. So I'm a little concerned about the breadth of the content in the expansion.
Yep.
Concerning.
I don't know.
I think a lot's gonna hinge on when they drop that first patch.
Yeah.
That adds the new raid content and maybe guild housing. We're not sure. No big changes to the cash shop though. I did make sure to ask them there. I said, are we going to see any changes to the item types? Yeah, we'll probably see new items, but can we expect like any big changes in what you guys sell, and they said nope. Still going to be the same cosmetic type stuff. In the States here, they do a really nice cash shop as far as not selling pay to win. So I kind of give it a mixed thumb. You know, it's not an up, it's not a down. If you're totally PvP centric, it's a thumbs down. There's nothing in this expansion for you. Maybe you'll check out the Coliseum a couple of times, and maybe you'll dig it, but there's nothing groundbreaking for you. If you're PvE, you're probably going to enjoy it. But I think you're going to hit the cap of starting the grind for the materials all over again pretty quickly. Yeah. So we'll see.
But it's free, so
it is free. Yeah, you're not paying for any of it. So there's always that. You can't. I guess you can't really bitch. Well, you can.
Oh, people will.
You can. People will. All right, so let's slide over and get to the bombs. I'm gonna go first today. Woohoo! All right. I'm going to give both a dub bomb and an A bomb to Borderlands Online. So if you haven't been following this, Borderlands Online is a thing. It's going to be a thing, which is incredible. Dub bomb, yay. Big Borderlands fan, and it just makes sense to put it online. I mean, I don't think I've ever played it single player. So
is it going to be free to play?
Don't know. This is still very, very early. But it also really doesn't matter, because my A-bomb is because it's probably not coming to the West, at least anytime soon.
How is that possible?
I believe
company.
If I had
the company that makes it is like 20 miles from my apartment.
If I had to guess, this will be free to play because we've got some usual suspects lined up here. Shanda Games, so probably free to play on that front. Launching in China, which doesn't do the subscription stuff the same way we do here. It's generally a free-to-play game when things hit China, or at least a pay-per-time type deal.
Yeah, time card or something.
So there's a lot of indicators that make me think that it might be a free-to-play game, but it's China right now, and that's it. We're not getting it here in the West, at least anytime soon. So both dub-bomb for being a thing and A-bomb for not being a thing that I can load up on my computer. You're up.
All right, I'm going to stop this ad from running. Okay, then I'm going to give an A-bomb to Eaten Alive, which was a show on Discovery Channel, apparently. I only learned about this a few days later, where the host was going to get eaten by an anaconda. That was the premise. That was what it was supposed to be, and he didn't. And on the one hand, it's bad false advertising by them. On the other hand, I compared those. I said it's like expecting a free-to-play game to actually be free. Like, did we actually think this would happen? But I have to give a dub bomb to the guy who wrote like the statement by the channel afterwards, and it was something that was just a standard. We realized that the host Jeff or whatever his name was was actually planning to be eaten by the anaconda, but then it just goes on like in this total PR statement, talking about a man being eaten by a snake. And why it just didn't work for the show or whatever. It's like
I don't even know how to segue out of that one.
I don't ever want to watch TV again.
UDK Facey says, I'm not seeing enough da-bombs. Yeah, you're right. 2 weeks ago, there weren't enough. So thank you all for slamming da-bombs into the comments this week. Yeah. Make sure you do it next week, too. Such an important part of the show. UDK Facey says, I'm not seeing enough da-bombs, so I'll throw mine in the ring, saying da-bomb for Skyforge, looking amazing and coming to the U.S. very quickly after the RU launch, and Spunkify's new title. That's correct. Mr. Spunkify is community manager for Skyforge. So da-bomb from UDK Facey for the Skyforge.
Oh, and I get the next one, of course.
I had to put it in that order.
Yeah, the order. Later on, see how the order matters too. Yeah.
You threw your shot at Final Fantasy, so here, have one at Lord of the Rings Online.
All right, this is from Leganist 1. He says, A-bomb. I now protest Turbine for lack of quality control in Lotro. It takes them years to fix problems, and it seems they still did not communicate with the community. And Lotro is a ghost town on all but one server because of it.
You actually have some concerns about your dear game.
Yeah, like I say, I'm playing it now because I want to play it before they shut it down, which the contract runs until 2017, but man, it's clearly
not bringing back their composer. Ooh.
Yeah, not bringing back the composer, but what did he say? It was because of in financial considerations,
Yeah.
we can't afford them anymore.
AKA couldn't afford it. I mean, it's Kinetic Fetus. I'll give a dub bomb to Trove because making 8 and 16-bit sprites on the Cornerstone surprisingly relaxing. So far, I've made Chrono and Ayla from Chrono Trigger and Proto Man. I love Chrono Trigger.
Okay, that comment, however, is useless without pictures.
True.
Tweet them to us.
True.
Tweet them to Bomb or to me or to Mike.
Pics or GTFO.
Yeah, exactly.
You're up, sir.
All right, well, this is the one. All right, thank you. Toll Shortle says, the bombs. First, to Jason Winter for his honesty and integrity. He shows every time he writes something for us to enjoy. His hard work is filled with heartfelt effort that's easy to see to anyone paying attention.
See, I had to give you you knock you down, but then build you back up.
Congrats to finding the 1 out of 1,000 that's positive about it. All right. And number 2, to Magic Man for his outing of Tryon Worlds. I agree with him fully on that and commented so on his editorial. Sometimes gamers have to say enough is enough, and it pleased me to see him do so despite the likelihood he will have to answer for to Tryon employees in the future. A-bomb to all the games rushing out of early access on Steam to be sold as full releases during the holidays when they still have planned features and know their games aren't ready. They should just take the time to finish and polish their games when undoubtedly the problems they are presenting still will hurt their sales and the gamers buying them. So I guess I have to give the corollary of a slight bomb to H1Z1 for announcing its early access well after what we thought it would be because they wanted to make it a good experience.
Yeah.
That's bits from me.
Wet plebe. Pleb. Wet pleb. Okay, so in terms of interesting and compelling skill branch systems, we were talking about that last week, I'd have to say the most enjoyable experience I had with that is Ghost X. Kind of depresses me mentioning it because I know pretty much anyone who wasn't around when it launched never played it. But basically, you'd acquire nanobots, weapons. The nanobots would level individually and evolve, and for every form of a nanobot, there was a new skill that with said nanobot you could unlock. Along with that, you had a personal skill tree for your character that you could allocate SP into to upgrade the effectiveness or power of the type of nanobots you used. I'd really love if intricate game mechanics like that were more prevalent. Oh, I guess this is a da-bomb, but I'm not sure if it's too long. It's never too long!
Never too long!
Never too long! We'll read it, it doesn't matter. Question of the week last week. We discussed Perfect World Entertainment's financial third quarter and not doing so well in the West, and we speculated on why we thought that was. We put it to you. What's the cause of Perfect World's losses? Do you think it's the models used in the cash shops, the games available, or something totally different that we hadn't considered at all? This is your favorite name, so I'll let you go.
All right, Fresh Undead.
You love that name. Fresh Undead comments every week, pretty much. Kudos to you, Fresh Undead. Thanks.
Keep it up. As I posted before, I really don't care for Perfect World's cash shop. That being said, the cash shop only really sucks if you really get into one of their games, i.e. Endgame. Otherwise, they are plenty enjoyable. See, if you spend more than $200 a month, they could have put a cap on it. But all right, I think the main problem is their games are really showing their age for the most part, and also their games don't stray too far from the same formula. Autopathing and super fast leveling to get you to the end game quick, so you get into that cash shop. Love the show and enjoy your articles, Mr. Winter. I didn't see that until now. Thank you again. Enjoy your articles, Mr. Winter. Keep up the good content. That's a good point that he brings up, though. In that,
what, about your articles being good?
Well, yeah, that too, of course. What about Perfect World's games? Like, they're okay, but I've just never played one that I felt was like, oh my god, this is the next awesome thing. It's like...
Well, and Perfect World International is getting the Eclipse expansion soon, which adds a new race and 2 race-specific classes. So that's cool, the new area and all that stuff. But then today they will go ahead and release. We haven't written this for the site yet. It'll be up later today. Here you go. Here's a gem, Instant 95.
Screw leveling content.
Yeah, all that stuff we built for years. Never mind about it. Dedenstein, could Perfect World's problem also just be oversaturation? I've only played a couple of their games, but looking at their catalog, there are just so many games, and quite a few of them look like they thematically overlap. If they spread their potential player base too thin over too many games, no one game is going to succeed, regardless of how they set up the cash shop or whether or not they're innovating. And I think that's a good point, especially when you looked at Perfect World's lineup. I mean, you have Perfect World International and Forsaken World, which thematically are pretty much the exact same game. One's just got a lighter tone to it. One's got a darker vampire-y, type overtones to it. So, but as far as mechanics and systems, they're virtually the same game. So I could definitely see that being a valid point.
Yeah.
Toll Short here had bombs, but I broke this up just to keep continuity of the show.
Gotcha. All right, Toll Short says, I think Perfect World's problems are a three-pronged issue. One, their games aren't new for the most part, and none that I'm aware of are doing anything special that hasn't been done before or better. And we've kind of brought that up already. Two, their cash shop isn't the best price shop out there, as they tend to make things obsolete, thereby making real purchases pointless. They took quite a barrage on that in STO, for example. And three, free-to-play games as a whole have taken a hit of late. The days of endless praise are gone. People are starting to realize more and more that free-to-play games often cost more than subs, i.e. Magic Man's Rift purchases versus sub costs.
Why you gotta bring up?
Got to twist the knife a little bit.
Why you gotta bring up Rift? I'm hurting. Question of the week next week. We give you guys questions every week, so now it's time for you to reciprocate. Give us a question. Jason and I. Also, Zach Sharps from Free to Play Weekly may be joining us next week. Still working out if it can work schedule-wise. I told you guys that I'd give you an update on other hosts like Brim and Sajero and Celsius and Domina and Havoc and all of them. Most of them will be coming back. After the holiday season, so we will be cycling those guys and girls in and out of the show as well. So lots of good stuff happening, but we give you questions every week, so it's time for you to do the same. Send us a question that you'd like every host to answer. It can be about any topic you like. Obviously, it's a free-to-play gaming podcast, so if you want to ask something free-to-play related, go for it. If you want to ask Jason about his glasses, fine, feel free, no problem. You can ask any question you like. We'll answer it here. Jason, where can everybody follow you, sir?
You cannot ask me, though, if I have a butt slider.
Oh, my God. How about a kneecap slider?
Sure, there you go. Find me on the Twitter at WinterInformal. Find me on the streamings at twitch.tv/JasonWinter. And a blog post, made a new one this week, about Lotro, over at jasonwinter.wordpress.com.
I'm Mike Byrne, a.k.a. Magic Man. You can follow me on Twitter at MagicMan1, MAGICKMANN1. Check it out on MMOBomb.com. Also writing over on XIVNation.com if you're a Final Fantasy fan. So check that out as well. Until next time, gang, stay safe. And we'll see you out on the servers.